So, anybody in the audience got a question? If you put your hand up, we've got one there and one here. We'll get some microphones over to you. I'm just going to go quickly to the questions we've got coming in from outside first, and then we'll come to those. So, Annusha, this one's for you. From deep fakes of celebrities to subliminal messages in landscapes, AI-generated media content is spreading virally every day. What responsibility should the developers of these tools take for its use or abuse?
I think there's not enough rules and regulations around use of digital data, especially images and videos. There's not enough information, there's not enough guidelines and framework on how they can be used, leave alone how they can be modified. So I think we have to start there. And I think the guidelines and the framework for modification of digital content has to be derived from ownership of content and how that can be viewed. So I think that's probably the most important thing. And I think we will also see a rise in the number of tools, and we're seeing that already in identifying digitally modified content. So I think there's going to be enough research in that space as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Have we got our first one from the audience? There we go.
Hello, right, Will Stewart. A lot of medical conditions that are mentally based are enormously helped by talking therapies. Now, I know there are some experiments in using AI to provide somebody to talk to, not cheating, being honest about the fact that it is a machine. I wonder whether that is the thing that actually is going to have the biggest impact in the medical area in the next 10 years. What do you think?
Brilliant, thank you.
So you're asking the question about matching a medical mental wellness practitioner to a patient. Yeah, I think that's a good use of AI to look at the needs of the patient and try to find the right expert to be able to talk to. But there are other aspects also, like proactively looking at the mind space, and there are tools which, when you're going in for a therapy session, you want to meet a real doctor, but there are meditation sessions which can be well conducted by technology. So I think you're absolutely right. Mental wellness is an area which has not got much attention, and that's an area where AI can play a significant role. Thank you.
We've got one here now for Tom. What are your views on implementing an international regulatory approach in the UK which can promote innovation in AI, but at the same time minimise risks of safety and security?
Yeah, so in the scenarios that we produced in the run-up to the summit, one of the dimensions that we purposely varied was geopolitical cooperation on AI. And that was for one really good reason, is that if you're seeing increasingly these tools released on the internet, they're not going to respect borders. Any kind of regulatory approach which just takes a kind of a single country, where that model could just be then developed elsewhere, kind of deployed elsewhere, and then kind of used and then come back into a given jurisdiction, is going to be much more limited than a kind of a global approach. So I think different countries are going to take different approaches. There are obviously quite big cultural differences in terms of how we think about different aspects of AI and kind of privacy and copyright law, and lots of different aspects to that. But fundamentally, if we aren't able to take some kind of coordinated approach across the world, it's going to be much harder to manage some of the risks associated with AI. And I think that's why you've seen the kind of UK government convening the AI summit as it did.
We had another one from the audience, I think, right at the back there. Have you got your microphone there?
Can AI develop a conscience?
Gopi, we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to define conscience. So the straight answer is no. The way you think about AI is it's programmed, it learns, but definitely it doesn't have a conscience. Yeah.
I've got a question now for you. Thank you, Gopi. We've got a question here for you, Torquil. We've seen lots of tech over the years start life in the automotive industry, especially from F1, moving really into kind of the wider audience. Will that continue, and do you think automotive AI will become something that then goes into other areas of vehicles, like motorbikes, bikes, and other areas?
I don't really see automotive as being at the forefront of AI as such. It has lots of applications within the engineering of vehicles, and a lot of it's actually applied to the way that vehicles are working and the user interfaces to them. And I think a lot of what develops there does spread out naturally, but I don't really see the automotive industry as leading in respect of, for example, consumer electronics, which is always going to be sort of several steps ahead.
Brilliant. Gopi, we've got another one here for you. Do you see any opportunities to use AI to remove inequalities in society for like life expectancy going forward into the future?
Wow. So AI has an ability to look at inequality in certain ways. For example, if you look at bias, there's a lot of worry about AI and bias, but it's easier to remove bias from data and hence AI rather than human beings. It will take longer. Now, in terms of inequality of life expectancy, there is much more than AI. AI should not be ever looked at as one silver bullet and it can solve a life expectancy problem. It's much more complex. It needs a systematic view in terms of solving that, but AI will have a role to play.
And just as there's a sort of supplementary question here that came in, which was, do you see AI helping with our sort of global goals on net zero? Is that something that you think AI is going to help with as well?
That I think absolutely and necessarily. So I'll give a little detailed explanation. So if you look at net zero, there are many aspects. One is the aspect of being able to consume less. The other is the aspect of being able to produce in a more friendly manner with lower emissions. And the third is to be able to remove some of those emissions in a manner that is acceptable scientifically. And in each one of these areas, AI will play a role. I'll just give a quick example in one of the areas. So you can produce electricity much more efficiently by optimizing a farm of wind turbines rather than an individual wind turbine. So one turbine can actually let the wind pass so that two other turbines can produce better at the farm level, and that determination can be done using AI.
Brilliant. Have we got any more from, we've got one here and one over there, if we can get a microphone there. And there's Peter here in the front row.
My question is about training, development and mentoring. So how do we make careers in AI accessible, and how do we bring on young people into this space? And then supplementary question is looking at how do like established businesses that are just traditional ways of thinking about the world, how do we help them step into this space?
Yeah, brilliant. I think we can go through all those. I'm going to quickly throw in a little bit on the end of that, because you've asked 3/4 of a question somebody's posted in there, which is, well, is how do we get social responsibility aspects into the use of AI and the development of it as well from younger people?
Yeah. So we can start with you, I think, Tom. There's a question around how do we get more people involved, trained, and have AI accessible,
Yeah.
and then I can.
Well, there's obviously a skills question to that, right? There, kind of and it comes back to the inequality question as well. You know, if you don't have skills in the economy in kind of the right areas, then either companies that don't have those, or communities that struggle with those, or countries that struggle with those, are going to that has a potential to exacerbate existing inequalities. There's a question for me around tutelage, actually, where if we're seeing AI predominantly having an impact on kind of quite process-heavy jobs or entry-level jobs where you're kind of maybe doing something a little bit more repetitively and using that to learn, then I kind of a little bit worry about kind of entry-level jobs and what happens there. And I completely accept the point that technologies traditionally have created more jobs than they've got rid of, which I think is your point. But I'm kind of interested in kind of how do we make sure that people still have that kind of ability to kind of join and develop that experience, which allows them to then be really good supervisors of AI. So that's for me is a big question.
So if I can add to that, to the jobs and skills aspect, there is going to be 70% of the jobs created which are going to be data annotation and data creation. And this is going to make AI kind of jobs at the data end available in remote corners of the world, including in areas such as United Kingdom, to be able to provide jobs in various corners of United Kingdom. 70% of the jobs will be, are we able to get the right kind of data? Because that is 80% of AI is about the data. 20% of the jobs will be about being able to take existing algorithms and being able to make them specific to a need of an industry or of a government or of wherever, and that will be urban jobs typically. And so to be able to get people trained into that requires little more forethought in the university, in the school system, and from institutions like IET to be able to provide that knowledge and skilling. And 10% of the jobs will be building new algorithms and creating new possibilities, and that will happen in the academic world.
Brilliant. Peter, I'm going to come to you next.
My question is not a technical question, though. Mine is one that's, I mean, it's so inspiring. I believe you're our first international president. So huge congratulations on being IT's first international president. You know, that's really inspiring for us all. Mine is actually a human question, and it's about Gopi, the president, and how you see the year ahead as our president. Could you say something about that, please?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I think the role of the president is to, number one, ensure that there is a continuity in this 150-year-old organization, that we are ensuring that the tasks undertaken and the focus undertaken by the previous presidents remain. And hence, it is my privilege to continue talking about mentoring as we go into the next year. And mentoring of AI could be one flavor for that. But for me, the focus that I can bring with my background and skills is in AI. And fortunately, AI is under the microscope right now in many ways, including safe AI. So the ability of IET to bring a neutral viewpoint on data ethics and AI ethics. These are two different things, even though there are overlaps. Data ethics is looking at the data we are collecting into training the neural networks and making sure that we are doing that in an ethical way in many different facets. And then there is the impact of AI and making sure that we are thinking through that aspect as well. And the critical thing for IET to do is bring that discussion into the engineering fold, because we are the best people to be able to do it. And then it can go to the policy fold. Tom, I'm sure you'll agree, because then we have thought through the details, the way then policy can take forward.